Often imitated, never duplicated. We are WESN's Talking Point. Sean Michael Small alongside Keaton Shaw. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On this Friday morning, it is the end of a hell of a week. You could say the ongoing chapter of a serious time in our nation's history with regards to a crime situation that the Prime Minister is now, after post-cabinet press briefing, has described as unusually horrendous. And we are in a situation where one criminologist is warning that the crime situation might be getting beyond out of control. I believe warning that the murder rate might go beyond what we would expect to have experienced before. This is the state of the land we live in, and there's turmoil and tension across the globe. This is not just something that randomly happened in TNT, but it is something that we do have to deal with, the parts of it that's affecting us in TNT. Good morning, Keaton Shaw. As always, to have these unfortunate discussions, because it's been 2 days and we have been meaning to speak about what's going on in the economy and the energy sector, and the Minister of Energy was recently on CNN's Quest Means Business, and we can't even get to that yet because we still have to unpack and treat with all of this. And just, browsing through the papers this morning, I find the word rape appearing horrendously a lot. It is distressing how much just that alone. It's almost as though I'm numb to a murder headline. So now, but at least with rape, it's not something that we're supposed to see in bunches. And this sort of crime now, we were talking about it yesterday. We were talking about it a couple of days before that. There's this new instances now. We can't even get out of the week.
Well, good morning, Sean, and good morning to all our viewers. It's a pleasure to be here to continue the unfortunate discussions that we must have. And yes, we here on Talking Point will not stop the conversations as it relates to crime and our social issues that are plaguing society. Now, before I comment on what you're stating, yes, it's not something that is randomly associated with Trinidad and Tobago. It's not something that is just autonomous to Trinidad and Tobago. But our current situation, you can say locally, is dramatically horrendous. Quite a description to put it, but prime example, a fourth lady was killed yesterday, murdered, right? And that's the third due to domestic violence this week alone. You mentioned in terms of rape. And again, what we have to bear in mind is everything that we're reading, it's shocking and surprising to us, but that's only what's reported. Think of instances that are not reported and that exist. So many a times, the number could be a lot greater, a lot higher, simply because of underreporting. Now, the Prime Minister's comments, in which he described the crime situation as unusually horrendous, is, well, to be very honest with you, weird. To put it as at that, label it as that, unusually horrendous. However, I mean, it's not an inaccurate description. It's just very peculiar that he would choose to use that description. However, when he went on to say that we have great social issues that need addressing, and when questioned on if he believes whether or not enough is being done to address the crime situation in Trinidad and Tobago, his response was, you can never do enough to address the crime situation in Trinidad and Tobago. And to me, ladies and gentlemen, I think that answer to that question, being a very blanket answer, not directly answering the question, tells me that the Prime Minister himself is in so much shock at the situation that really is within his hands. Let's admit it, it's in with his hands. I'm not saying he's the cause of everything, but he's certainly the one to try and find solutions or help the situation. I think he's not entirely sure what to do, who to turn to, or what next can be done. And whilst the Minister of National Security indicated that the Prime Minister is the only individual who can judge everything that he's done, is the only one who can really assess his record as Minister of National Security. The Prime Minister has defended Foster Cummings with the entire issue. But in that entire post-cabinet media briefing, at no point in time did he actually address specifically, straightforward, the Minister of National Security's role currently. And to me, that in itself speaks volumes. Because if you're coming and you're speaking about the crime situation, you're saying that it's unusually horrendous and, a lot more needs to be done and you can never do enough, you should speak more so about the individual whom you have at your side that is charged with ensuring that all our national security apparatus, especially as the head of the National Security Council, be the Prime Minister and the Minister of National Security, is being done. So that is where we're at. But I go back now to the realities on the ground, and let's start off, Sean, with this particular news story. A 56-year-old Digger Martin woman was killed yesterday by her common-law husband. It is being now, it's now being addressed. Marva Sutherland of Andrew Trace, Blue Basin, Digger Martin, was the fourth woman to be killed in 4 days this week, from Monday to yesterday. She was an amputee that was found dead in an apartment where she was a tenant. She was found just after 9 a.m. lying on the ground with a pool of blood with a cloth covering her head. Police found a rock on the ground near her body. There was a wound to her head. So she was bashed to death by a rock. At least that is what initial indication states.
By a common law husband.
By a common law husband. It is believed, remember, as the law goes, innocent until proven guilty, it is believed to be her common law husband. And this is just another instance of domestic violence here in Trinidad and Tobago. And whilst it might be very difficult to address that from a national security perspective, my entire thing is, where is the outcry? Where is the pushing for protection? And need I say, this is the time, and I must bring it up. I truly must bring it up. Because I hate to politicize crime. But this is the time where I need to see various women's leagues. And I'm not just talking about the most recent infamous one. I'm talking about all these women's leagues coming out and talking and addressing the situation and condemning the situation.
You mean the political women's league? Let's not.
Political women's league is one, but generally all.
No, but now traditionally, I will say this. Traditionally, like we saw in the case of the recent murders, oh gosh, I can't remember, Andrea Barrett and the other young lady, Ashanti Riley, right? We saw protests coming out for them. And then we could go back a few years earlier with Shannon Banfield. We saw protests come out for that because that whole situation there was very dubious, to say the least, especially since I don't think any serious investigative results came out of that. However, I will say that the nation, not just the advocacy groups, but the nation tends to, well, only certain murders will strike a chord, unfortunately. And I remember before Shannon Banfield and the protests and all of the other murders that were grouped with her unfortunate demise, before that, there was very, very recently before that, a young lady she was found, her dead body was found off of a cliff, I think up near, just off the Lady Young Road. I believe it bothered me that during the times when the victims were being remembered and they were protesting against what happened to the other young ladies, this young lady was practically forgotten, possibly because of what she was alleged to do as her profession or her background or where she came from, but it did bother me. Now, with that said, yes, if you have Women's League behind your name and you're not concerned about crimes against women and domestic violence and you're not speaking about those issues, not only do you look somewhat, you show your lack of, how do I put it? You're not really there to be a women's league. You're there to be a political entity with the Women's League label. And the sad part is, politically speaking, what are you doing? This is a missed opportunity, even if you want to act in bad faith, to show leadership on an issue, to capture the attention of the people, to show that you have a leading voice, something to say, to establish some more political foundation. But you're not even doing that.
No.
You can't even strategically think that far ahead.
No.
And I don't understand.
Now, before we get too carried away with that.
I don't want to go too far into that.
Let's not get too carried away with that. But it's just something to note, put it that way. And then when we spoke yesterday about the mother of 3 who is decapitated, Shauna Muhammad from Guayagari, in front of 2 of her children, and the family's claiming that they made at least 6 reports to the police.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the police have, and the police did nothing. The police have indicated, well, it's rather sad, the upcry, because we acted. Now, the family is claiming one thing, the police are saying they acted, and the police have actually come out and acknowledged that 2 reports were made. The family claims 6 reports were made. And this is why I say, ladies and gentlemen, when you go to a police station, please ensure you get the officer's number, who's taking your report, the officer's name, and ensure that you receive your receipt that a report was made. Please, I beg of you. It's very important to tackle instances like this, because the police are claiming 2 reports were made, or at least confirming that 2 reports were made. And they said they acted. But
the problem is the police have set themselves up. Why should we give them the benefit of the doubt?
But here's...
Especially just what some of their colleagues did, especially with just how the acting commissioner is handling the situation. Why do they deserve the benefit of the doubt?
Hold on. In response to the claims by the family, they said the upheaval is quite unfortunate. We have one of the highest detection rates and one of the lowest crime rates in all of Trinidad and Tobago. And I'm not entirely sure where that came into the entire story. I mean, kudos to you, don't get me wrong, but I'm not entirely sure how that's a part of the story. But one of the things that you need to understand, and what we should understand, is that the less reports that are accounted for in Trinidad and Tobago, in other words, the less reports that are officially confirmed to have been made, it's the lower the crime statistics. And who does it look good on?
No, hold on. So, a family has a young lady that was chopped to death, almost decapitated. And the sorry excuse that they want to give us to try to make us think that they're not lazy and inept is, well, we have the best detection rates. So it's fine. That has nothing to do with what happened. It doesn't matter what your detection rate is. It literally has nothing to do with what happened. You are trying to you're trying to distract us from what is actually taking place. That is not a defense. When somebody is accused of a crime, right, their record of something else is not necessarily going to help them, is it? It's not going to wipe away the facts of the case. It's circumstantial. Indirectly, it might offer a little bit, but this is a grieving family, and you're publicly going to try to throw this weak... I can't say what I want to say.
Anyway, look...
It's a sign of deflection, Keaton. When you have nothing good to say, you throw out nonsense. I don't want to say nonsense. I want to say something else.
Sean...
That is very upsetting.
Hold on. Pause. Because it's not unnecessary information, but it has no relation to the story. I think it's information that we should know of. We should know of. And yes, well, it's agreed to deflection. I can't say in its entirety it's unnecessary. I just think it has no relation.
Yes, but when you are dealing with a grieving family, you do not throw cheap statements out like this.
I agree with you. But if we're focusing on that, and this is where I think that more and more, we need to focus on the relationship between the police, the TTPS, and the public. And the best way to do this, because as much as the TTPS goes on and says you have to come make reports, and as much as the TTPS media ambassadors are making their rounds to various outlets here in Trinidad and Tobago, folks, I can't stress this enough. This is very, very important, because at the end of the day, it is evidenced. Because you can go and talk to a police officer in a police station. That doesn't mean you've made a report. You know, that's unofficial. And that's what I'm saying, that the more unofficial reports that are made as compared to official reports, the lower the crime statistics. And that looks great on the TTPS. And you have to be careful of that. So please, I stress this one more time. Ensure you get the officer's name, the officer's number, because they always have a number. And by the way, if you request an officer's badge number, right, and their name, they cannot refuse you. They cannot refuse you.
Well, hold on.
And then also ensure that you get your official receipt that is stamped and signed. Because at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, all of this, and bear in mind, you can go to any police station.
I was now about that. Wait, I was now about to say about that. Don't we still hear reports about people being turned away?
Yes.
Despite the fact that you are supposed to be able to go to any police station?
We got into a minor accident, right? Outside the Eddie Hart Savannah in Tacarika. And when I say minor, I mean literally it's a scratch. But you have to report everything, right? You have to report everything. So, went to the Tunapuna police station to make a report. Do you know what the police officer there told me? He says, well, that's our jurisdiction. You have to go to Ruka. I said, but I'm not going to Ruka. I'm here at the Tunapuna police station right now. Well, no, not really, you know. And by the way,
so the closest police station is saying it's not our jurisdiction?
Sitting there on the phone, playing with his phone, not even taking it on, right? And I'm just saying, well, can I have your name and badge number? Because he wasn't wearing it. And that's when he looked up. And that's when he wanted to give back chat. Then, in the meantime, there's another police officer sitting down on his phone again. I think he was playing a game, actually, because I got a clear view. The phone is ringing to the station, and he ships, nah, boy, I don't really want to answer that right now, you know. I don't really want to answer that right now. It was not until a senior police officer walked out and told the officer whom I was speaking to, one, still take his report. You still have to take his report. And then the senior police officer then looked at the other one playing a game. The phone is answering, what you sitting down there? He stoops and he got up to go and answer the phone. And by the way, that is something that I've noticed, and I think the TTPS needs to address this. When you get direct numbers to a police station, I'll be very honest with you. I've called quite a few, including the Tunapuna police station. They don't answer. If you call 999, you get through. You get through very quickly, and in fact, the response from 999 is far better and far greater. It may take 15 minutes, but it's still better because you can't get through to a police station directly. So at the end of the day, all this public relations on the part of the TTPS, I salute officers. They have a job to do. But in my experience, it's very difficult. It's extremely difficult because I have not had great experiences with the TTPS.
Here's the problem with this is what I believe is the problem with what you just described. If you have to call the emergency number just to get a response, what does that mean? That means everybody will be calling the emergency number, including non-emergency. So that will slow down that function because the non-emergency number is not doing the job. Right? You have a phone for a reason. This is your job. That's what you signed up for. You didn't sign up to sit in an office.
Very quickly, I want to cover two more stories before we conclude. Because
I just want to point out something you said about what the Prime Minister, one of his comments, you can never do enough. Now, I will say this. Yes, some of the Prime Minister's comments with regards to the viciousness and the frequency among family members, crime against family members, I think he is right to say that. I want to thank him for that. Now, what you pointed out, when he said you can never do enough, I wonder if it's a Freudian slip. With regards to the fact that I don't think there's anybody in that cabinet or any minister or senator in that government that wants the position of Minister of National Security. I don't think they know what to do.
Now, interestingly enough, ironically, to a certain extent, I will say thank you to the Prime Minister as well because at least the Prime Minister came out and spoke to the nation.
Yes.
At least he publicly made comments and addressed the nation. Because
That's a leadership function.
right? Because at the end of it all, we may not necessarily agree with what he's saying, or we may say, well, it could have been said a bit better, or you could have elaborated a bit further to give clarification. At the end of it all, at least he spoke, and he didn't shy away. Say what you want, he did that. I mean, how often you hearing that from other officials, from other high-ranking officials or leaders, other than the political gimmickry and nonsense that come out of their mouths sometimes. So at least thank you to the Prime Minister for that part. Very quickly, 2 more crime stories, and then I will conclude with an update in relation to the Kamani Francis investigation. Starting off with police are investigating a murder along the Western Main Road near West Shore Medical Hospital in Cokereed. It is stated that at around 5:30 p.m., gunmen opened fire on a white Nissan P15. The vehicle subsequently drove to the Four Rose police station. The vehicle Do we have automatic driving cars in Trinidad? Anyway, whatever. The driver was unhurt. However, a man identified as Adisa Harry of Waterhole, Cokereed, was pronounced dead. A man and woman, also of Waterhole, Cokereed, was shot and injured. Taken to the hospital for medical treatment. What's the interesting part? How a man identified as Adisa Harry is not indicated if he was a bystander. So I'm sorry, this is poor reporting. It's not indicating whether or not he was a bystander or passenger of the car. And first of all, a vehicle subsequently drove to the Four Roads police. Again, oh God, it's minor and whatnot, but still poor reporting on the part. Whatever it is, you get the gist of the story. And at the end of it all, criminals have absolutely no care in the world for how they carry out their attacks now. None whatsoever. They don't care about if it's broad daylight, in the middle of the highway or a main road, at a private, whatever it may be.
Well,
they don't care.
My only concern is, I get it, you're shot at. It's not as though the Four Roads police station is that far away, but all of the hospitals are in the other direction. So if it was a passenger in the car, I'll just be like, I don't know if I would prioritize things quite that way.
Then, a 17-year-old man has been shot and killed by police in San Juan. Reports indicate that from the police command center, they received a report of men setting fire to a house on the corner of 1st Street and 1st Avenue in San Juan. Upon arrival, police found the bottom part of the house in flames and the assailants attempted to make their escape. The officers gave chase and one of the assailants allegedly shot at the police. Police returned, fired, and the boy was shot. He was taken to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. He has been identified as DeAndre Henry. Another police killing, but, ladies and gentlemen, an investigation needs to be carried out. But
it always needs to be carried out in all police shootings. That's supposed to be standard.
If the reporting is fact about him setting the house on fire, or allegedly setting the house on fire, and returning fire to the police, because I question, we heard about body cameras before, we never get any video from these body cameras in these instances.
Hey, remember,
then could you blame the police?
Gilks was shot from in front, Keaton. Gilks was shot from in front.
If Gilks was shot from in front,
according to
where was the police footage?
The acting commissioner of several weeks ago. Not the acting commissioner now. The acting commissioner now doesn't believe Gilks was shot from in front now.
Well, he can't.
But several weeks ago he did.
Hasn't the autopsy? So. Anyway, and finally, just to give you an update with respect to Kamani Francis. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is purely speculation. This report is not confirmed to be 100% accurate, as police are still investigating. But an outpatient of a psychiatric clinic gave police a verbal confession that he killed a 2-year-old. Right? Well, he didn't even say that he killed a 2-year-old. He said he killed a baby.
Or the child.
Right? That is what he said. Okay. Whose body was found in the Guapo River. Right? The acting commissioner of police, McDonald Jacob, has confirmed the latest development, saying that police will investigate the claim. They're awaiting of the results of the autopsy before taking the process forward. Now, interestingly enough, this autopsy, I'm not entirely sure. It's being stated that they were able to bring up the autopsy to today, right, rather than next week. That is what is being, stated right now. I can't verify that for you because I didn't get any information up until the start of the show. But the police officers actually have detained the man out of precaution until investigations continue. In making his claim, the man did not mention the name or the gender, and they did not disclose how much details the man gave in his statement after walking into the Point Fortin police station. But here's where I say bad reporting again. Here's where I say bad reporting. The first line of this article, and folks, this is where, honestly, the media, you all really need to play a role as well. Journalists in Trinidad and Tobago, I don't know what's going through your heads, or if you read your articles before making it public and publishing it. Here's the first line of this article. An outpatient of a psychiatric clinic has given police a verbal confession that he killed 2-year-old Kimani Francis, whose body was found in the Guapa River on Tuesday after he went missing on Monday. And then, a couple lines later, I think this is now the 5th line. So that was the first line I read for you. The 5th line of the article says, in making his claim, the man did not mention Kimani by name or by gender. So instantly, public perception, ladies and gentlemen, you can't do this. The public is already hurting.
Oh, no, wait.
There's an outcry.
Don't forget the headline.
Right? There's an outcry. What's the headline? Psychiatric outpatient tells police he killed Kimani. And then the article said...
the reason why this is important is, one, he's a psychiatric outpatient. I mean, that should more or less explain itself. You can't expect him to act rationally and be of sound mind and judgment. Also, there is the fact that, okay, he might be confessing, but people might feel guilt when they did not necessarily have direct responsibility. So maybe he saw the child, didn't report it, is feeling guilty. He's also a psychiatric outpatient, so he can't explain himself properly. All of these things can be wrapped up together. But the headline is going to... people are going to read the headline, they're not going to read the story. And they're going to assume, hey, a man killed the child, you know. And then if they see the man out in public, they might attack him.
Listen.
Meanwhile, false confessions happen.
The public is hurting. There's an outcry. From what I understand, the neighbor has now had to move because of being attacked and threatened. Right?
Long time.
This is terrible what's going on. But you see, when we have reporting like this, journalists and media in Trinidad and Tobago do not help a situation or do not give clarification. They only fuel the hurt and the hatred even more. And instances like this could cause division as well. So I am pleading, I'm not going to call the exact newspaper, but I'm pleading with you and to all other media houses and newspapers, be very, very careful what you put out there and what you say. You have a responsibility and a duty, and this is absurd and poor. And as a journalist, I can tell you, I'm ashamed at this article, as what it's doing and what it's portraying. Folks, we take a break here on Talking Points. When we return, well, we take a shift from what we've discussed this entire week. We are now going to focus on what the Minister of Energy and Energy Industry, Stuart Young, said in his interview. And yes, we know that we are a couple days late, but nevertheless, it's still something that we should address. We will give you our thoughts and opinions, and then later on when you call in, you can share and add to the discussion. Stay tuned to Talking Points here on WESN, the Content Capital.
Don't keep yourself handcuffed. We continue to receive calls from members of the viewing public whose cable provider is Flow and cannot receive WESN. We advise that you unfortunately reside on the original Flow platform. If you wish to receive WESN's high-quality programming, you must contact Flow to be upgraded to the new Flow Evo platform. Call Flow now and demand your upgrade.
We dare you to dream, to see beyond the struggle, to envision the possibilities, to live life with unlimited vision. Ferrera Optical supports you with complete eyewear starting at only $795. Let's make those dreams a reality. So book your visit via 227-7000, WhatsApp message 278-2878, or at FerreraOptical.com today. We dare you to keep going. Ferrera Optical says, don't limit your vision.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
If you live with someone who's tested positive for COVID-19 and has to self-isolate at home, take care of them from a distance and reduce their movement around the house. Give them space, a designated space, and open those windows. If you have to be in contact, mask up, both of you. If you work, stay home from work and don't go out, not even to the grocery or pharmacy. And remember, no visitors allowed. Limit the contact to limit the spread.
The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back to Talking Points. Well, earlier in the week, I believe it was either Monday or Tuesday, Stuart Young was on CNN's Quest Means Business to speak with regards to Trinidad and Tobago and its natural gas production, its place in the world with regards to energy and derivative products. And he's come out of that conversation facing some of the usual criticisms, you could say. Now, on one hand, we do seem to be getting some mixed messages from the government with regards to will we expect any increases in revenue, any boons, not necessarily booms, from the situation. In one public appearance, the Prime Minister, I believe, did try to temper expectations because they were pointing at the time to the gas subsidy and the exponential increase that was going to cause our revenue to potentially deplete, so they removed that. But now there's still the fact that at the end of the day, the price of these products have gone up, and what is going to be the final outcome for TNT? Well, the Prime Minister did speak on that yesterday, but we'll get into that. Let's see that interview. We cut it into two parts so that those who might not have seen it might better have an understanding how our Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs represented the nation on the international stage. Let's take a look at the first part.
Now, the war's threat to Europe's energy security is countries looking for other suppliers. Ramping up production is Trinidad and Tobago. The nation is the largest natural gas producer in the Caribbean. Before the pandemic, it was the world's 8th biggest LNG exporter, according to BP. The government expects output to return to pre-pandemic levels by next year. Stuart Young is the energy minister at Trinidad and Tobago, is with me now. Minister, grateful that you're with me. I was listening, I saw the G7 the other day and read the statement, and I saw about how cutting off or weaning off Russian oil and gas would require extra from everybody else. How can Trinidad and Tobago help Europe, or anybody indeed, by producing more?
Thank you very much, Mr. Quest. It's indeed a pleasure and a privilege to be here with you and this international audience today. Trinidad and Tobago is a twin island state with the southernmost Caribbean islands in the Caribbean, and we're only about 5,100 square kilometers. How can we contribute? We're looking on at this international crisis taking place, and as you said, we see ourselves as punching way above our belt. We have been a significant gas producer, LNG producer, for the last few decades. At our height of production, we were pumping out about 770 million MMBTU of LNG a year on an annual basis. We have 4 trains. So we see the ability. We have additional capacity right now, Richard, and we are eager to step in to assist in what is going on globally in whatever way we can. It's not only on the LNG front, but we're also a significant ammonia producer in Trinidad as well, ammonia and methanol, and we have capacity there as well. So as a gas producer and someone who turns gas into both LNG as well as what we call petchems and ammonia, methanol, urea, UAN, we are ready to do what we can to assist with what we see as this crisis taking place.
And also internally within the country, the increased price that we're now seeing for both gas and for oil must, it's an ill wind that blows no good, I suppose, but you must be doing better as a result of your energy exports.
Well, we certainly are. I heard you talk about pre-pandemic stages. We've gone through yet another cycle coming out of the difficulties of the early stages of the pandemic. And yes, we are seeing income increase as a result, especially on the LNG side, as well as the ammonia side of pricing. As you know, with ammonia prices, they've climbed from around $180 a metric ton. They're now hovering around $1,400 a metric ton. So there is a significant increase in revenue to these companies, etc. And we will see some in our coffers as well.
So, the obvious criticism, at least with what the minister just said there, we have a second part coming up after this, is where is all this capacity? How do we have 4 trains? Now, I think because one of the trains is for all intents and purposes dead, right? Now, I think the key here is as prices go up, production of certain extraction, of raw materials now becomes more viable. So there are gold mines that have to wait for the price of gold to maybe increase. Diamond mines, the same thing. With regards to rare earth metals, there's only, I believe, 2 mines in the world, one in China, one in the US. The US mine is not operating because it's just not profitable to do so. The one in China more or less is taking up the market. If anything happened to the supply, then the one in the US would reopen again. If the price of rare earth metals went up high enough, the one in the US would open up again. So I think that with the higher gas prices, that is my initial assumption as to how we could ramp up production in any meaningful way, because it's just more profitable to do so now than it was before.
Now, I'm looking at what the minister said here in relation to how does the rest of the world, and in particular Europe, deal with its current energy crisis. They have to look at where there's an alternative supply, and hey, TNT is one of those places. Now, interestingly enough, I'm not entirely sure to what extent we could actually facilitate Europe's supply. However, I will say that whilst our production has been low, right, and I think it's been the lowest in 18 years, if I'm not mistaken, we also have to bear in mind that, and I'm glad that you mentioned this, sometimes there are gold mines and there are diamond mines that are waiting for the prices to go up before you begin extraction. And I think we have to go back to, I think it was a couple months ago, late last year, that the government signed a deal, was it with BP or Shell, over 25 years. So we're looking at the Laura and Manatee field, right? We're also looking at the Cassia field. We're looking at the Matapal field. I think also there's a Ruby field, right? So all of those things you have to bear in mind. So whilst our production levels right now aren't necessarily the greatest, I think the lowest in 18 years, the government has indicated and the energy minister has indicated that they are currently negotiating to ensure that these fields come back on track, that production comes up back on track, because the price is right, basically.
You want to hear the irony?
What's the irony?
So, initially I believe I pointed out that the decision to stick with energy is saved by something that you could not predict. One nation deciding to go to war with another nation and causing energy prices to skyrocket. Well, ironically, the decision to maybe try to maintain the infrastructure of Train 1 might be saved by that very same thing as well.
Well, it depends on the returns.
It might make the decision seem brilliant now, which the decision has nothing to do with the outcome, or rather, you could not have predicted the outcome. However, to say that we are fortunate potentially that it's there because the infrastructure is there. So we could ramp up production to some extent faster than other places because we have unused infrastructure. That is potentially one of the unfortunate regrets of the refinery. What would the refinery have been in this environment? We could have the debate. The government says it wasn't profitable. I know, Professor, you say it was profitable. But forget that. In this environment, it might have been very profitable, but oil refinery...
Listen, the truth is, currently, our status and where we're at does not reflect the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries comments. That's the truth. Let's be realistic. Futuristically, we're not entirely sure. I keep passing the Hyatt, and I see this big sign about our Energy Expo that's due within the coming weeks. So who knows what might come out of that.
There's money to be made now, I think.
Exactly. But not only, if you realize, not focusing on oil, we're focusing more on natural gas. So I'm wondering if we're pivoting now more so to natural gas and the byproducts of natural gas, petrochemicals.
Because one of the issues is the European companies that were our strategic partners, they were trying to fall in line with the mandates of we need to go green, we need to go green. So why bother with Trinidad Gas when we could just kind of continue with our European projects, and as we wind down everything globally, transition to green energy. However, now the economy globally has taken a hit. The transition to green energy is going to suffer serious setbacks, right?
It's been delayed.
It's going to be hell of delayed because it is not worth the money as much as people try to make it out. It's way too expensive right now. More importantly, Europe has demands for natural gas now, and these businesses are looking at these prices and say we could profit off of the gas now. Sooner is better than later in this case.
I kid you not. I'm probably going to sound very optimistic here because we've had this discussion before, but I'm a little bit excited and at the same time very nervous because you never know how this could flip. But I'm very excited. You see, the opportunities that are going to come with ramped-up production for natural gas include, hopefully, the creation of jobs that will earn foreign exchange as well.
Right.
So there are other opportunities as well out of this.
Well, for more on that, I believe that the Minister of Energy Affairs had to answer at least one question in that direction to Richard Quest. So let's get the second part of the interview.
What are you going to do with it? I mean, what are you going to do? To the extent that the windfall that you are enjoying is tremendous amounts of revenue.
Well, Richard, I wouldn't put it as tremendous amounts of revenue. As a government, what you're doing is you're really making those revenue increases off of taxation. So you wait for it to come in. But as a government, just coming out of a very difficult time with the pandemic, you have bills. So we'll be paying our bills. We survived the early stages of the pandemic. The government revenue is used to look after approximately 1.4 million people here in Trinidad and Tobago who, quite frankly, have quite a good life. So we'll be spending it on our education, which we've spent billions on in terms of our currency and just other things that are necessary for the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
Let's get to the issue of how, in your view, does the world wean itself off Russian oil and gas? I mean, we can have a long discussion about was Europe foolish for not weaning itself earlier post the annexation of Crimea in 2014. But we are where we are, and the difficulty now for Germany, for Italy, for the Netherlands, for all these other countries, Hungary says to withdraw Russian oil and gas would be like hitting the economy with an atom bomb.
What you have to look at is globally what other countries can help contribute by ramping up production. So that's where we want to come in and assist. But you know, Richard, there's another conversation taking place with respect to weaning yourself off of gas. We see it as completely different. So there's a whole renewable conversation which we're in support of, but we see gas as the cleanest hydrocarbon fossil fuel. And we actually think gas is going to be around for decades. So for example, in Trinidad, 99.9% of our electricity needs are derived from the natural gas that we produce. So how does the rest of the world, and in particular Europe, deal with this current crisis? You have to look at where there's alternative supply of natural gas, and hey, Trinidad and Tobago is one of those places.
Minister, very grateful for you tonight. A different perspective on this. Actually, I'll be quite honest, I had no idea really that TNT was such a such a big player in this, and I'm delighted that we've covered it tonight. We learn something new every day, sir. I'm grateful. Thank you. As we continue.
So the Prime Minister also reiterated what the Minister of Energy Affairs basically just said. We have bills to pay. And it answers a question that Keaton brought up repeatedly on the show, and one that scared me, to be honest. It was a very important question that could have easily seemed a minor issue, fly under the radar. Basic thing, how do we pay off the loans that we took during the pandemic? Because revenue is just not going to magically ramp up. And then somehow it did. So we're in a weird spot where we are profiting off of a tragedy and a travesty and a calamity. But the fact of the matter is, I don't know if paying off our loan debt is necessarily mathematically the most efficient way to use the money. There might be more efficient ways to play around with it and then eventually pay off our debt. However, I think I personally I'm more reassured that the government is looking to wipe that out so that we don't have that kind of hanging over us. Debt financing is a thing for governments, but I don't think we should be riding that horse, taking that gamble just yet. And the long shot is whatever the revenue is spent on, just the influx of foreign exchange is going to help our balance of trade so much, and it might alleviate some of the problems that our small and medium businesses have to deal with. However, just like how diversification gets thrown out the window once energy prices goes up, I hope that to some extent the consideration we have on where we spend our foreign exchange does not revert back to, well, we just import everything.
Now, here's the part that got me confused. It's funny to me how Richard Quest said, I didn't even realize how much of a player, how big of a player Trinidad and Tobago is in this game. And I think he was being a bit sarcastic. I'll be honest with you. I think he was being a bit sarcastic, and rightfully so, because I think the energy minister gave the impression that we have the capacity to assist Europe should they wean themselves off of Russian oil and gas, which we are seeing.
I don't know if I think he was trying to say that we will be part of the solution, not the solution.
No, that's what I just said. A part of it.
Yeah.
We cannot be the solution.
Well, I don't think any producer, to be fair, except maybe Venezuela, whose gas is untapped.
The minister kind of gave the impression that we are going to be a part of it, and to what extent, because
I think we are already actually.
Good to see all these things. my concern is, as I said, I'm taking the minister's words. I'm taking it as him being open and honest. You know, there are good things to come. I know that we signed a contract with, I think it was BPTT for 25 years. And the issue for me is when you say we're going to pay back your bills and invest in education, you have to be a bit more specific, my friend. You have to be a bit more specific, because whilst we will see an increase in our foreign exchange, exactly what bills are you referring to? Are you mean supplementing the shortfall in the budget? Are you mean decreasing our deficit? Or are you referring to the loans that we have taken, the innumerable loans and funding that we've been granted over the COVID-19 pandemic and prior to the COVID-19 pandemic?
The Prime Minister said large basket of debt.
Right, great.
So,
again, blanket statement.
That is true. But at least I am hoping, right, that I'm making the reasonable assumption that means all of the major loans we took out during the pandemic. All of those big loans.
That could even mean...
I know, exactly, yes.
Sean,
it could mean more than that.
You have, again, this interview came at a very interesting time as well. Because we have our mid-year budget review due soon. And you know, all of this will also add to the contributions of the Minister of Finance. Now, when he said we're also going to use it for education, precisely what do you mean by that?
Well, I guess they're going to increase the budget for education, which is already one of the largest line items, because one of the problems, at the end of the day, it comes down to this. The problems with the schools is we're shooting higher than what we could reach. We're aiming higher than what we could reach with the current expenditure that we have.
Yes, but Sean, you used the word there in your entire thing. My guess is. And that's the thing. How many times are you going to keep guessing?
True.
How many times are you going to keep guessing? So, as much as I say it is highly optimistic of me to share in the excitement on the part of the Minister of Energy of what is potentially to come, because it does not necessarily reflect of where we are right now.
I think,
ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, what the Minister stated, I don't know if you want to take a spoonful of sugar or a spoonful of salt with it, but hold on to your seatbelts, buckle up, because it's going to be a wild ride ahead.
Well, Keaton, my final guess would be...
Oh, Lord.
My final guess would be is that they are gun-shy to give any definites, because if you say, we're going to do all these grand things, and then it falls flat on their face, then they don't want to deal with the criticism. And the fact of the matter is, I would advise that you figure out a way to communicate enough, and you also figure out a way to temper expectations.
Sir,
those skills are leadership functions as well.
My good friend, they're gun-shy because they're afraid of potentially the criticisms that could come if they fall flat on their faces. I could go after the Minister of Energy right there and criticize him for a lot of things he said. But at this point in time, if I'm thinking down the road and thinking down the line, that's what I'm saying. Fasten your seatbelts, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be a bumpy, interesting one.
I am just hopeful that our foreign exchange situation would at least be assisted in this. I suspect it will be, but we'll see.
That is true. It will be, because we're going to see more KFC outlets opening across the country. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break for news on the hour here, and when we return, we open up the phone lines this morning.
Burning questions, urgent topics. Welcome back to One on One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One on One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One on One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN Content Capital.
Seven is out, all day is in. WESN News on the hour.
North Coast Jazz 2022. After Family Saturday, the sky ignites with Brew Sunday, where Juve meets Pan meets Soca. Juve meets Pan meets Soca. A Juve experience featuring Hadco's Phase 2 Pan Groove, Mixmaster DJs and powerful soca. Witness the expression of a new-found freedom with paint and vibes. Dance along to the music of our national instrument. Blue Sunday. Blue Sunday. A colorful experience. A tradition you won't want to miss.
Looking for somebody to jam with me and have some fun. Juve.
Sunday, May 29th, Festival Grounds, Blanchisseuse. North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival 2022. 3 days, 3 events, 3 experiences. Born here, played here.
Tickets available at Crosby St. James, Extra Foods Arima, Grand Bazaar, Endeavour and Chaguanas, Extra Foods Sagre Grande, Digicel, Trin City and Gulf City Malls, WESN, 38 Gattaca Street, Woodbrook, Suntex.com, or call our ticket hotline at 628-5835 or 681-1516.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
Is it politics? What is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
If you live with someone who's tested positive for COVID-19 and has to self-isolate at home, take care of them from a distance and reduce their movement around the house. Give them space, a designated space, and open those windows. If you have to be in contact, mask up, both of you. If you work, stay home from work and don't go out, not even to the grocery or pharmacy. And remember, no visitors allowed. Limit the contact to limit the spread.
The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back to Talking Point. Sean Michael Small alongside Mr. Keaton Shaw, and this is the time when we open up the phone lines to allow you, our viewers, to get your word in. Tell us what you think with regards to what we said or with regards to anything that we might not have brought up either today or earlier on in the week. Disagree with us, agree with us, or you want to bring up something new. Call in now. I believe we have a caller, but just before the caller, Keaton, what are your numbers?
You forgot them again?
Of course.
623-9376, 622-933. The numbers are up on your screen. We have a caller with us from Diego Martin. Good morning, caller.
Hi, guys. Thank you. Good morning. Keaton, before you start my minute real fast, can I just acknowledge the murder of Al Jazeera journalist Shireen Abu Akleh by Israel?
Yes.
And now they're beating the mourners in the funeral. Also, Sean, you're looking real sharp today. So
yes, it's dress up Fridays. Keaton, didn't get the memo.
Oh, dress up for you and not so dress up, but still looking cool for Keaton. That's
Keaton
cool.
didn't get the memo. That's fine.
I dress up every day of the week, and then on a Fridays I take
No, but that's the thing. That's the thing.
No, but
now,
that's cool. You could do it either way.
We're
whatever.
subverting expectations.
But, I just want to give some context on women and children. Some stats. Sorry. So between 2005 and 15, over 300 women were killed. 2008 to 15, over 7,000 cases of abuse. 2010 alone, 482 cases of rape and incest. 2020, 45 women. Last year, 30 women, 1 girl. Now in 2014, there were 42 kids. But right now, to date, we have 14 if we're including baby. So 14 kids in 4 months equals 42 in a year. So for me, that incessant theme of the village, I think we need to acknowledge that we live in a sexually charged patriarchal society. And I'm always amazed at why people are amazed, because these things have been going on for decades. So anyone from ages 40 to 90 should know this, but some people are happy living in their bubbles. And I think media also have to check themselves. Where's the investigative journalism? We need much more of that.
Yeah.
What about the objectification of women by so many people, soca artists, chutney rum people? At any given time, you could see women's body parts being flung all over a screen in a vile video with crude lyrics about what men want and what they want. It's all tied in. It's not isolated. Stop the hypocrisy. Thanks. Goodbye.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you very much.
There is another article with regards to abused women and the police response. Do we have another caller?
Not at the moment.
Well, okay, so I will take this opportunity because there were so many things with regards to crime, and we did not get to all of them. And one of the things that flabbergasted me was it seems as though police officers are telling women, well, the quote on the headline is...
That's an alleged claim.
The headline says, when it's sweet all you don't come here. And it has caused, apparently, the head it has caused Claire Guy Allen, the gender-based violence unit head, to basically say, every report must be responded to. So I don't know if that is a slight acknowledgement that maybe the problem is there from a police officer, but...
Well, we have a caller on the line with us from Clarkson Bay. Good morning, caller.
Morning, Sean. Morning, Kika.
Morning, Mr. Fisherman.
Mr. Fisherman.
Morning to the listening public. What I want to say is this Minister of National Security for real?
Does he exist?
Because he is saying that if the people don't pay the property tax, you have the money to fight the crime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he said that.
Yeah, that's not what property tax is for. That's not what property tax is for.
So they have the money to fight the crime. So I'm thinking, correct me if I'm wrong, and the budget, then the Minister of National Security did this for?
Yes, I'm actually trying to figure out if now we're looking for every single justification for property tax, the return of property tax.
This is for real,
Yeah.
I think he's the worst Minister of National Security.
Yeah, it's hard to say. It's hard to disagree.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Again, I go back. Does he exist?
That, to me, so if you thought Trinidad was not a real place, well then he is the mayor of the Neverland. That is Trinidad.
I also want to just raise another story here. We focused on women and children this week. And before I go into that, we do have a call line with us from San Fernando.
Good morning, caller.
Hello, good morning.
You're live.
Hey, morning, guys.
Hey, good morning, sir. Good to hear from you.
I need to put a spotlight on Mr. Nurse, the head of the police service in Tobago.
Uh-huh.
I listened to Mr. Nurse criticize Diane Haddad for some comments she made with the spate of robberies in Tobago.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Nurse sounded like Gary Griffith, thin-skinned, where anytime you criticize the police service, they want to come after you.
Mm-hmm.
It was so unprofessional of that man, the way he criticized her.
Mm-hmm.
I was so disappointed. And I understand that they're under pressure because there are a lot of things that have been put on the police services plate
yes.
that shouldn't be. Everything now is the police have to solve. School violence, the police.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, but that criticism, the way he went after Miss Haddad, it was unnecessary. If you're trying to foster a relationship with the business community in Tobago, and I could understand the business communities
with the community on a
position in Tobago
hold.
with all these robberies.
Yeah, with the community on a hold, caller. If you're trying to foster a relationship, if you keep saying community policing, and we need the public to respond as well, you can't talk to people like that.
And the last thing I want to say is we really need to get our debt to the GDP ratio down. So I really hope that this windfall that we're going to get, because we, Keaton, I wouldn't agree with you to say that Stuart Young sounded as if we're going to solve the problem, but we have an opportunity to make some more money from the gas going to Europe.
Yeah.
Just as we did with gas going to Japan and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think once you put it to good use, I am cool with that. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. I agree with you. Once you put it to good use, that's why I said I'm a bit optimistic in sharing the excitement.
That term unprofessional, thank you. That's the term that I was looking for when I wanted to describe the responses to the family when the police wanted to say, well, detection is high here. Really? Unprofessional. But we have another caller from Diego Martin.
I believe we do. Good morning, caller.
Morning, caller.
Good morning, Mr. Shea and Mr. Small.
Morning.
Glad to have your line operational again.
Yeah.
Now, listen to this. The police service is going nowhere faster unless they admit to themselves they are failing society. They will not get anywhere. Now, let me get to the Prime Minister himself. He is saying that the special branch report is in intelligence and there is no evidence. He got it in 2019. What did he do with it? Did he ask them to investigate? Or is he one of those put it in the dustbin and whisper into the Minister of Non-National Security to advise, not to instruct, to advise the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Jacob? Remember, he say you only take advice, you don't take instruction. Hey, hold on that. Don't go further. Because let us look at the actions of the Prime Minister and let us call out reports. You had the Barrington and the Pritchard report.
Mm-hmm.
Those were two retirees, and you act on that. You run by bliss. You run by your partner, the press, and you mash up the appointment of police officer. What about the Darrell Smith report? What about the credit card report? What about you say there was corruption in the boat report? That is the KFC report. And you did nothing. No, the real question as a citizen
Quick caller.
of Trinidad and Tobago, where are we going with crime and criminal activity? Are we suppressing real issues because the leader of the country doesn't want to investigate it? It tells me that there was a purpose and a strategy to get Gary Griffith out.
Yes,
and
of
I'm
course,
going to
yes.
go back to Gibbs and Iwatsky,
We had our
when
second
they
wrap
were
up.
alleged to be investigating certain high official, they give them a payout and they go. Was that the same situation with Gary Griffith? Because he wanted to investigate AMV and he wanted to do some investigation.
All right, caller, thank you.
Thank you, caller. Thank
Have a
you.
good day.
Sorry, we're out of time. We have to be strict with the time these days. But I think all of those points were very important points. And the lack of consistency, let me put it that way, between the accusations and intelligence on one situation and another situation. The former Commissioner and Foster.
I really want to read this story, and I will very shortly, but we have another caller in line with us from Chaguanas. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning.
I hope you don't get mad at me for saying the same thing over and over and over.
I got used to it by now, don't worry.
It only took him 6 months.
Yeah.
But we keep concentrating on crime. When I have repeatedly said the problem is law and order. We don't enforce our laws, and the proof of this we intend to do is how you enforce is you have to prepare your administrative reports, and none is prepared. Are you disputing that?
Nope.
Good.
Well, I
Why
think
don't you ever say
I think there's
We are
certain
not
agree.
disputing that at all.
You're right that
We agree with that 100%.
solving white collar crime can also have a trickle down effect in the community. What we're seeing with criminal activity now.
I will also say this. Part of the problem is with regards to those reports not being done is there's a trickle-down effect in the TTPS, and I'll get into that maybe a little bit later if we have time.
Professor, thank you. Have a good weekend. I'm just wondering, that call from San Fernando, when he said the TTPS has to investigate almost everything now, including, with schools and all that. I'm wondering if the TTPS and their resources are being stretched too thin.
Well, so that actually is what I wanted to bring up. I wanted to be fair. Much is demanded of the TTPS. It was demanded during COVID. They had to deal with the public health regulations and a lockdown and a state of emergency and a curfew. And a lot of police officers, relatively speaking, died from COVID. Those numbers weren't small compared to other first responders, at least that we know of. And much is still being demanded of the TPS now because at the end of the day, that's just the nature of the beast. Crime is rising, so we're demanding that they do more. Here's the problem, though. Here's the problem. There's a combination of too much dead weight, too little leadership, and way too much corruption. Because that situation there with the shooting of PC Gilks, I think, is just at the tip of the iceberg with regards to that.
You realize we haven't gotten any further updates in relation to our investigation.
But the sad part is all of the good officers, and we know there are good officers there, but they're drowning because the water is rising and they're being pushed down, crushed by the weight of all of that you have to carry. Too much dead weight and corruption and not enough leadership, and leadership on multiple levels. And I'm not necessarily using this as a dig at the acting commissioner. He is one man. And there's supposed to be, I believe, 3 or 4 deputy commissioners and a commissioner. And he has no help in that regard.
All right, I'm just going to take some time now to read through this article because we were focusing on children and women this week simply because of what was taking place. But police are investigating the circumstances surrounding a 1-year-old child being hit by a car in Chrissy Terrace Enterprise, Chaguanas. The incident occurred on Saturday and officers have received conflicting reports. In the first instance, a Chaguanas woman contacted law enforcement by telephone at 11:50 p.m., bear that in mind, 11:50 p.m. on Sunday, and informed them that her niece's son was hit by a car. She told police her own child was behind the wheel, adding that the entire incident occurred in her yard. The woman said her son was driving the car when the child ran behind it. She claimed the driver stopped and the toddler crashed into the bumper before falling to the ground. In other words, the vehicle stopped and the child was, running so fast that he hit the car and fell to the ground.
That's not so much that the car hit the child, that's the child hits the car, according to that.
That's one report. The second report says in the aftermath of the accident, she reportedly took the child and his parents to the accident and emergency department at the Chaguanas Health Facility. The woman alleged that she has been since threatened by a male relative. On Tuesday, now the incident took place apparently on Saturday at 11:50 p.m. That's when the police received the report. On Tuesday, the boy's mom went to the police station and told a slightly different story. She reported that around 10 a.m. on Saturday, so this is almost 11 hours before the aunt made the report, her son was at home with her aunt. She said he ran into the roadway in front of the house and was hit by a car driven by her aunt's 16-year-old son. The teenager was reversing the car and he hit the child. The mom confirmed that the son was taken to the Shogunas Health Facility and then the Eric Williams Medical Sciences Complex. Now, here's a conflicting report. Not only is it the time difference as to when the reports were made or the time of the accident took place, but the mother of the child is saying that the son ran out into the roadway in front of the house and was hit by the car. Not the child hit the car hit the child. And then, secondly, interestingly, it's a 16-year-old son. I mean, you are entitled to have your learners, but whether or not he had his learners at that point, he wasn't supposed to be driving the car by his own. Whether or not, if he was reversing in the driveway, somebody's supposed to be in the car with him at all times. That's conditions for having your learners. But then the aunt is saying that, well, my son stopped, the child ran into the car. The mom is saying the car hit the child. And now there's conflict within the family. At the end of it all, how was this child? Because the mom is saying that the child was at home with the aunt, but then the aunt is also stating that she took the parents and the child to the accident, to the emergency. So that doesn't indicate whether or not the parents were at home. At the end of it all, how did this child get out? How did this child get out?
The child got out. Was the parents there? Did they actually witness what happened? And now, of course, we have to ask, what is the truth? Did the child run into the car? Did the car bounce the child? Because the thing is, this is why, ladies and gentlemen, I understand it. It's family. It's family. You don't report family to the police. It's a minor thing. Don't blow it up into a major thing. Well, unfortunately now, the mother's waiting until Tuesday. We're talking day 4 or 3 days later, you could say, after the incident. It's not so easy to believe the mother's claims when it's so far removed from what happened. So that time difference of reporting really, really, really hurts the situation, because at the end of the day, we want to get the truth. And it would have been better if reports were made on the day. What happened, right? I get it. Okay, maybe Saturday you were concerned with the health of the 1-year-old. Then there's Sunday. And if you went and the police turned your way, that's a whole other thing that we could quarrel about.
What we need to know is why wait almost 3 days after.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It hurts your claims. It hurts your claims. I don't know who to believe.
I don't know who to believe. Now,
So I'm just saying, report things as they happen. Even if it's family, report an incident.
Both instances, again, no matter if the parents were home and witnessed the accident, or if if they weren't home or whatnot, and the aunt was looking after the child, whoever was the ward at that particular time, or locus parentis, then the child got out. They are to be held accountable for that.
There is that as well.
Two, it is both realistic for the car to stop and the child to hit the car, and at the same time for the car to hit the child. However, based on the fact that he was taken to the Shogunas Health Facility and then the Eric Williams Medical Sciences Complex, to me, again, I'm no investigator, no lawyer, I can't point it, but to me it sounds more that the car hit the child to the extent where his injuries. Thirdly, you have a 16-year-old driving a car. Regardless, again, I say, one of the conditions of you having your learners is that there needs to be somebody in the car with you all the time. Even when you have your driver's license, Sean, even when you have your driver's license, you cannot drive a car that is not yours, or your name is not specifically on the insurance, unless, once you're 25 years and under, unless the owner of the car is with you.
I would just like to reiterate, because we push to get driver's license and private cars, and everybody wants a private car, etc., 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 and young people with their license, etc., etc. We have all of this unhealthy relationship with licensing officers, and you know, there was a time when everybody apparently passed out something to get their license. All right, whatever. Public transportation. I just want to throw that out there. Because some young people, I get why families want their young people to have their own vehicles for safety, but some young people maybe should not should not be driving, at least not so soon. So we need better public transportation.
That is where we end our phone calls for this morning. Thank you to all our callers for their contribution. And that is where we will conclude this week's programming. Mr. Sean Michael Small, it has been a depressing week here in Trinidad and Tobago to all the families who have lost loved ones due to horrendous, unusually horrendous circumstances. May they rest in peace. Our condolences and thoughts are with you. I will choose at this point in time to remind everyone to be mindful. Now that we have to see it and now that we have to speak it, if you have a child, you have to have eyes at the back of your head, at the side of your head, on your toes, on your knees, on your elbows. That child is to be in your sight at all times. Please, I beg of you.
And under your control.
To the TTPS. What can I say? Oftentimes your report conflicts the reports of the public. I don't know who to believe or I don't know who's telling the truth, but I only ask for effective policing. And to the Minister of National Security, well, I wish you a good day, sir, and I hope you come out of hiding soon. Sean?
So, not to be the bearer of more bad news, but we are closing in on 4,000 deaths with regards to COVID. So, once again, we're just asking people, don't be complacent with regards to if you feel sick, there's over-the-counter tests that you could take. Not all of them are expensive. Just do whatever you have to do to make sure that your loved ones are not put at risk. I know that there's a situation with regards to schools, teachers, and how fearful are coming out. Maybe this is why you should have gotten vaccinated. However, it is what it is. The main thing is please don't be complacent and don't just assume everything's going to be fine. And on top of all of that, I want to reiterate what one of the callers said yesterday, because it was something that I also thought myself. I do believe that things are going to get worse before they get better, because that is the direction they're heading now. We are fortunate that it's not necessarily going to be all bad for us. The situation in Ukraine, I believe yesterday there was part of the supply between Russia to Germany was cut, which could further impact the price of natural gas and energy. However, we might be a little bit insulated from that. But it still means that there is room for this thing to get worse, and things like imports, food imports, all of the items that we need that we cannot produce for ourselves because we don't produce for ourselves. That's going to get more expensive and potentially going to be disrupted. And then on top of that, we are still getting our heads around the trauma of some of our citizens from the pandemic and the lockdowns, and now the precarious economic situation, because we're getting revenue. I get it. And our foreign exchange is looking better. And those are good things for us in our situation. But there are a lot of parts of the economy that are still recovering or struggling. And there are going to be a lot of people who maybe the bomb did not set off today, but the ticking bomb could set off next week, next month, somewhere down the line.
What a way to conclude.
So, be your brother's keeper.
Anyway, do you believe in superstition?
Well, if technically you're either that's a weird way to ask it, Keaton. Let's we're out of time.
Today is Friday the 13th.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, folks, have a great weekend. Sean and I will see you again on Monday morning.
It's not my first Friday, first day.
Bye-bye.